David Goss here in Frisco, Texas for MLSsoccer.com's continuing coverage of the Generation Adidas Cup 2015. Today we have a matchup, an international matchup once again. Chicago Fire facing off against Tigres, Liga MX side's U17 team. Tigres currently sitting at second place in the Mexican League U17, facing off against a very talented Chicago Fire team. I'm David Goss. Joined with me is Jonathan Yardley here today. We saw a great first matchup between Chivas and Sagantos out of Japan. Excited for this one as well, Jonathan.
Yeah, these two teams have been in a tough group. They're going to finish behind the LA Galaxy and Orlando City, both having already played them. Tigres actually beat Orlando in a shootout, so they could jump ahead of them with a win, finish second, and get into the playoffs for 5th through 8th in this Premier Division. Chicago has started out 0-2, but both of those losses were tight against LA and Orlando, so a lot to play for them as well. These teams are going to play out all the spots, all the way from 1 through 16 in the Premier Division, so still plenty to play for. They'll have playoff games on Thursday and Saturday.
These two teams now, a mission to come in here. Chicago Fire clearly set up, have things that they want to work on, a way that they want to go about this game. We were talking to their head coach, Gonzalo Segares, before this game, and he mentioned kind of already has the substitutions planned out, I think, where he wants players to get experience in different situations. For Tigres, we've seen them play very well at times, good at the back, big center backs in this tournament here that have been extremely successful so far. In this game here, coming in for these coaches, a little bit of a different challenge to motivate this team. But like you said, they still have 3 more games to play here in Dallas. and still a lot of work left to do, a lot of experience left to gain for these two sides. Starting.
Yeah, anytime you step out there, there's a pride factor as well, especially when we get these international matchups. We've seen the U.S.-Mexico rivalry on all sorts of stages, and here's just another example.
This Chicago Fire Academy team was actually down in Mexico earlier in the year playing a tournament out at Estadio Azteca in Mexico City. Starting lineup for them in goal, Ramon Rosas, left back Eduardo Ruiz, center back Manny Cerritos, center back Jacob Graber, and right back Michael Silvar. In the midfield, a three-man midfield, David Portugal, Victor Becerra, and George Mihailovic. And up top, a three-man front line in this 4-3-3, Sebastian Padua, center forward Christian Marquez, and right midfield Braden Calipari. This Tigres team coming out here to start out in a 4-4-2. The right back for them, Osvaldo Hernandez. Center backs are Gabriel Lopez and Armando Facio. And the left back is Jair Diaz with Raul Elizondo in goal. In the midfield, from left to right, Cruz Leal, Israel Rios, David Vasquez, and Pedro Cifuentes. And up top, Juan Rodriguez and Luis Garza, who interestingly enough was in this tournament last year with the FC Dallas Academy, has now swapped over and is playing up top for the kickoff here for Tigres. Our good old friend, the Frisco Texas Wind, has finally showed up to join us here. A quiet first game. Rain this morning. The sky has started to clear here throughout that first set of early games into the second set of games. Our second of third broadcast today on MLSsoccer.com. First one saw Sagantos, a last-minute winner to win the group over Chivas USA. And now another Premier Division matchup between the Chicago Fire here and Tigres.
And the wind has dried out the field a little bit, so we won't have quite as much of the skipped bounces, and it should be a little bit easier, certainly, for the goalkeepers in this second game.
This Tigres team we saw in their first two matchups, very patient with the ball. Gonna work it around the back. Their back line has this ability to hit the quality long balls. That one's headed out by Graber. And this Chicago Fire team, one of the more talented academies throughout MLS. A lot of quality players have already come out of this academy. Maybe a little bit of a surprise, their performance so far in this tournament. Well, now they look to right that ship and get themselves a victory. So our first shot flashes wide. Rosas now to take the kick.
Yeah, they've never been dominant at the academy level. I think their best finish in the Generation Adidas Cup was 5th 3 years ago. But they have produced guys like Colin Fernandez and Harry Shipp and Chris Ritter, who are up with the first team. Cam Lindley, through their Indiana program, is one of the top prospects in his age group. So if your primary goal is developing players for the first team, Chicago's seen some success in that area.
Throw in here for the Fire. This Tigres team coming out of the Monterrey area. Their big rival, of course, is Monterrey. One of the most well-supported Liga MX teams at the first team level. They've had success in the Liga MX, a championship in the last 2 years, as well as the Copa MX title in the Cup. A team that, of course, has seen two Americans on their roster, Jonathan Borenstein and Paco Torres. And has
Gringo Torres.
Whatever you want to go with today.
He's got a lot of nicknames.
This long ball comes through. Easily won back by Chicago. And a couple of the danger guys to look out for. David Portugal, number 34, sitting at the base of that midfield. Ability to score goals as well as break up play. He's going to really control the tempo for this Chicago team and launch their attacks. Portugal here on the ball. Sprays it wide to Ruiz. Well won there. The center back, Gabriel Lopez. Lopez and Facio, the two center backs, have a serious height advantage against Christian Marquez, the center forward. We've seen that for most of the international teams.
We've seen that from MLS teams as well, though, throughout the tournament. Smaller center forwards going against hulking center backs. And they've got to use a little bit of trickery and get the ball to their feet more.
Dangerous there. Battle between two players at that far post is going to go out. Looks like for another goal kick. And we saw in the last game, Chivas and Sagantos with their center forwards, both smaller, liking to pull out wide and help their teammates create. Marquez here has a lot of options to help him out in Padua, Becerra, and Calipari. One there in that midfield by David Vasquez. Vasquez, the metronome for this Tigres team. He'll drop deep like this, pick up the ball off the center backs, really marshal this team around the field. Long ball over the top. They do make contact. First opportunity on goal, and it's in for Tigres. Juan Rodriguez gets the goal, the assist to Luis Garza, and it was all created from the long ball from the center back, Gabriel Lopez. We saw it already in the first few minutes, that ability, that back line to drop those long balls over the top perfectly on a dime. But the first touch from Luis Garza here, it looks like it's too high for him to control it. He gets up with the outside of his foot, lays it in the path of Rodriguez, and Rodriguez able to slot it home easily past the helpless Rosas for an early 1-0 lead to Tigres.
We were just talking about smaller center forwards needing to be tricky. This was a bigger center forward doing well in the air, not with his head, of course, but a great volley touch, and Rodriguez moving off the ball. Nobody from Chicago stayed with him. Ended up being a relatively simple finish.
And I had an opportunity to watch this Tigres team play earlier in the week, and that long ball over the top from the two center backs, especially from Gabriel Lopez, was a consistent threat for this team, and Chicago's choosing not to pressure high on those center backs, so it's going to be tough for their backline to deal with that long ball.
First goal of the week for Tigres. They lost to LA 1-0. They tied Orlando 0-0, picked up an extra point in the standings on penalty kicks. And a regulation win for Tigres here would bump them into second place ahead of Orlando and put them in that 5th through 8th place bracket in the Premier Division.
Chicago now trailing early on, yet to really find their feet. Now they'll have to do so and push for a goal. Silvar pushing it wide to Sebastian Padua. Padua gets pushed off the ball. The Chicago Fire team, like I said, went down for a tournament. It was MLS clubs facing off against Liga MX teams. They lost in the final in the Azteca Stadium, a great opportunity for them to play there. They have experience against Mexican opposition. Last year they traveled to Qatar for a tournament hosted out there. Once again, we see that long ball from the center back out wide to Leal. Chicago Fire showing some patience now.
We know all 4 semifinalists in the Premier Division, and we do know the matchups for tomorrow's semifinals. We'll have all 4 games, 2 semifinals in the Premier Division, 2 semifinals in the Champions Division. And the first game, which will be tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern, great MLS matchup, the New York Red Bulls and the LA Galaxy, big clubs from coast to coast squaring off. The second semifinal at 4 o'clock Eastern will be Sagantos from Japan against Independiente Medellin from Colombia. So a couple of great matchups already decided there. The rest of the Premier Division teams fighting for spots 5 through ultimately someone's going to finish 16th.
Tigres still looking commanding on the ball, comfortable in possession. Once again, that long ball over the top, finding some success. Israel Rios picked up that initial ball coming off that right wing.
Now he's all the way over on the left.
Feeling free to roam and float, these Tigres players. Tigres not traditionally a team that brings players up through the academy to their first team. First team very loaded with a lot of veterans, some foreign, as well as Liga MX veterans, but this Tigres team has shown well so far in this tournament. Shot comes in again, flashes to that far post, picked up now by the fullback Hernandez. Hernandez gets it to the captain and their center back, Facio. Played back eventually. Cifuentes plays it in. Long ball over the top. Wide open opportunity. Looked like in there for potentially Juan Rodriguez again. Called offsides in the end. Chicago Fire, though, struggling to deal with that set piece.
Yeah, and they've struggled to stay with markers, and that some of that is the interchanging that we talked about. Tigres players a little bit more fluid in their formation, and Chicago's going to have to deal with these crosses, and the second ball often is the key one. You stay with your runner the first time, but can you stay with him when the ball's played through on the continuation of the play?
Chicago Fire just have not been able to have their own possession so far in this game. Forced to defend for most of this opening 10 minutes. Juan Rodriguez got us started. Our opening goal of this game much earlier than our last game's opening goal. As a check-in opportunity here, Rosas reads that well, gets out. Now he looks to start the counterattack.
That play started with Pedro Cifuentes, who's wide left for Tigres, running through the midfield, taking on a couple of defenders, and the ability of their outside mids to make diagonal runs either with or without the ball has given Chicago trouble early.
Silver tries to find the feet of Padua. Sebastian Padua, one of the Developmental Academy All-Star members last year, down at their major tournament in Florida. He's performed well for this team throughout the year. Tigres now with this lead is at ease to play their style. Very patient working it around the back, Jonathan.
Yeah, to be honest, it feels like an uphill climb for Chicago. Chicago has the wind in their favor right now. They're still seeing none of the ball. They're down a goal. It's been all Tigres so far.
Silvar gets called for the free kick foul there. It'll be a set piece once again for this Tigres team. This one right on the edge of that 18-yard box. Looks like David Vasquez going over to stand over it. The midfield maestro for this team, as well as his partner, Cruz Leal. So Vasquez right-footed, Leal left-footed, set to take all of the big bodies in the box for this Tigres team. Leal leaves Vasquez on his own. Chicago, like we said, has to be better with their marks. Ball comes in, flicked off that near post. That one's well handled by the Fire, and then the shot flashes high. Looked like the center back Graber won that initial header, so much better there for this Chicago Fire team.
David mentioned we got a chance to talk to Gonzalo Sigueras, Chicago Fire legend on the playing field before the game, and now working in the academy as part of the coaching staff. And it's fun to see former MLS players getting involved in different ways after they finish. We talked to Steven Wondolowski on Monday. And we, of course, last year Greg Vanny was here coaching. Now he's the head coach for Toronto FC. But it's fun to see them getting involved in different ways, whether it's in the front office, on the technical side, on the management side, or out on the playing field in the youth ranks.
And it's one of those things, this is a development area for players, but also for coaches. An opportunity for them to stay with the game, like you said. And as MLS moves now from generation to generation, you have MLS lifers who can stay in the game and teach the younger players, especially a player like Sigueras, who played internationally from another country, can bring that different style. It's what we've seen in this tournament, a learning experience for these MLS teams facing off against international competition. You mentioned Steve Wondolowski talked to us earlier in the week about watching them at this foreign professional clubs as they warm up, cool down, just the ethos, the way they go about playing the game. And it's definitely been a learning experience for these MLS teams, and we've seen some great battles. The New York Red Bulls and the Recife game on day 2 was one of the better matchups that we've seen so far. Chicago now putting on a little bit of higher pressure. They win it away, but not cleanly, and Vasquez launches the attack. Chicago Fire win the ball back. Gonna play it out of the back now. But good touch there from Mihailovic to keep it alive, and now Silvar has it. And right now, the Chicago Fire cannot connect that back line to their forward line. Playing in a 4-3-3, they have those 3 options, just have not been able to find their feet. Cross comes in. Easy call there for the referee in perfect position. Makes the call look like a collision there between both Bizarra and Silvar. Silvar pushed off, his arm went up in the air, hit the ball, and it's going to be a penalty kick for this Tigres team to try and make it a 2-0 lead. And the captain and the center back, Armando Facio, stepping up. So this hill to climb could get much higher here in the 15th minute of action. As Armando Facio stepping forward to take this one. The 16-year-old captain here will take against Rosas. The right-footed shot saved by Rosas. He keeps his team in the game. A powerful shot there from Facio, but he can't finish it.
How many times are we going to see goalkeepers come up big on this field? Great movement by Rosas laterally to his left. Extended well. It wasn't a perfect PK from Facio, but not a bad one either. Really good stop, and that could be an emotional lift for Chicago.
Now the referee will stop play. It looks like his linesman talking to him there on that far side.
Yeah, here's a look at it.
This penalty kick save again. The right-footed shot, he hits it with pace, not on the ground, but not far enough from the goalkeeper. Rosas, it looked like, reacts well, reads that shot, and does a good job pushing the save wide to not allow for a rebound. And now it's going to be a free kick to Chicago Fire. I think there was an offsides call.
I think it was actually a bad tackle. That could have been a card, but we're actually blocked in our view, but I don't think any card was issued.
Chicago trying to get their attack started. Brandon Calipari playing out on this left wing. Beating to that ball, throw in now for the Fire. What do the Chicago Fire have to do to jumpstart this attack?
I wish there was an easy answer. They need to get hold of the ball, and they need to connect some simple passes around the back, gain some confidence. And then you talked about there being 3 options coming from the midfield. There need to be more than 3 options. You know, the wingers need to be tucking back, making runs, not just standing in position, but moving off the ball and giving options for the Fire attack to start out of the back.
And Christian Marquez so far has been a lone soldier up top. Hasn't had much support and a lot of pressure on him due to the size and strength of those center backs, Lopez and Facio. Facio here on the ball. Facio, that penalty kick opportunity for him. Very rare for a center back to get a goal. That was an opportunity for him to make this 2-0. And now a chance for the Fire to tie it up. Big save in the end from Elizondo. It looked like Bizarra snuck through there. His power able to get through one defender. Good touch from him to get on his right foot, but the final shot saved.
Yeah, and Braden Calipari actually started that play with a great first touch. He stole the ball, but he didn't just win the ball. He put himself in a better position to move it to a teammate, got it inside. Becerra kind of powering his way through, more might than touch, put himself in a good spot and forced Elizondo to respond. Crucial save at one end by Chicago, crucial save at the other for Tigres.
And for a few minutes, As Tigres is in here now, an opportunity for the second one, and it's a goal. Tigres making it 2-0. Chicago Fire finally has a glimmer of an attack, and then the immediate response from the other side looked like potentially Israel Rios coming out of that midfield, as we'll see the highlight here.
When the long ball comes in, and what you can't see is that the goalkeeper slips. He was thinking about coming out for it and lost his footing, and that really made it an easy finish in the end.
And Jair Diaz, the left back, with the assist for that second goal, so a penalty kick saved by Rosas. Yet Chicago Fire still down 2-0, and just as their attack started to get going, I was about to mention that for the first time in this game, the Tigres forwards were back behind the midfield line, forced to defend a little, and that Chicago backline had some space. Now another chance here for Chicago. Can they finish this one off? Another big save by Elizondo. And once again, it's Victor Bizarra coming out of that midfield, his second goal-scoring opportunity of the last 4 minutes, and another big save. Elizondo stepping up and making it. Christian Marquez with the layoff there. Plenty of space, acres of space for Bizarra. And now Chicago will bring their big bodies up. Jacob Graber as well as Cerritos. Silvar gets beaten there on the ground to the ball. And now immediately Luis Garza launching the counterattack. Garza plays it through. For Tigres, the cross comes in. Rosas is beat at the near post. It's 3-0. This Tigres team is running riot. The cross comes in, and before Rosas can even react, the flick on at the near post takes it past him and in for the third goal. And once again, the Chicago Fire, a great chance on one end, and then immediately a goal conceded on the other. Look like that one will go to Israel Rios, the center midfielder, coming out, making that long run from box to box and flicking it on.
Well, this is just a clinic right now, David. We've seen both teams create chance after chance in the last, 4 minutes? But who's putting him away? Tigres has been clinical in front of goal. Luis Garza credited with the second goal of the game just a couple minutes ago, the 19th minute. And now Rios with that header, putting it away. 3-0 Tigres first half. I expected Tigres to win the game. I did not expect them to be this dominant so quickly.
And the Chicago Fire now have to turn it on, try and push themselves, get themselves back into it here in the first half. And while Tigres has had better of the ball, it's really just been about being clinical. Chicago Fire had 2 great opportunities. Tigres had 2 great opportunities. Tigres scores twice, Chicago yet to finish. Trying to play Christian Marquez in here. Bizarra has been the crux of the attack now, had those 2 opportunities. That through ball there, pushing himself a little bit higher to give that support to Christian Marquez.
Yeah, we've seen him get more involved, and that's obviously, when Chicago has the ball, going to be a big difference. He's going to have to contribute on the defensive side as well with as much of the ball as Tigres has had.
Long ball over the top. Once again, Tigres in on goal. Rosas makes the save. What a run there from Cifuentes. Cifuentes came all the way off the left wing to make himself a third forward. That ball bounced over Rodriguez's head. It looked like Cerritos for Chicago thought it was going to bounce through. In the end, they get a shot back the other way, and Calipari, his header goes wide of the post. But this Tigres team running rampant right now.
This is ridiculous in terms of defensive organization. Chicago needs to figure this out. I think Gonzalo Segueras would love to have halftime come maybe 5 or 10 minutes sooner.
Maybe try and get a 30-second timeout called here.
If he had one, he would have already used it, because the back line and the midfield are not communicating. When runners are coming in, they need to be passed off to the zone into which they're running. It's not happening. And at the other side, Tigres is playing into the wind. They're launching these long balls perfectly, such that the wind knocks them down before the goalkeeper can come get it.
And I had mentioned to you as this game went to kick off that the center back here, Gabriel Lopez, was going to be my man crush of the game, because he is so good at playing that long ball. I watched him for a few minutes in that Orlando game. A chance here now, Christian Marquez. Shot just left in an opportunity, not one-on-one with the goalkeeper, but an opening to shoot, and he can't get it on frame, Jonathan.
That looked a bit unlucky. The fields are in great condition here. but just the bounce and the spin of that ball, it seemed to come up on him right at the last second. I think it came off maybe his shin or his ankle more than the laces where he was trying to hit it.
So Chicago now in 5 minutes, 3 goal-scoring opportunities, can't finish any of them. Back the other way, Tigres has been clinical.
You can't say it's not entertaining. Both teams creating chances end to end here.
And it also makes you feel that Chicago has a chance to get back in this. If they can finish 1 or 2 of these chances, go in at halftime 3-1, 3-2 down, they have a shot. You don't want to see them go DC United, though, and lose 5-2 in the end. Marquez now dropping very deep. Last time for Lopez. Knocked out here, a throw in. Going in favor of Tigres. And it's so interesting to see from our last game, Chivas USA, Sagantos, both teams playing the ball on the ground, working in tight spaces, connecting passes, and this Tigres team just very direct, very tall, very athletic, and very clinical.
Yeah, and we're used to seeing so many teams come here and play some version of a 4-3-3, either what I would call a 4-1-4-1 or a 4-2-3-1.
Leal with that shot. Rosas stretches wide, makes the big save. Rosas has conceded 3 and yet has made 2 massive saves so far in this game, including on a penalty kick and another big one there for Rosas, stretching out to his right. Corner kick coming now for Tigres. We know they have the big bodies. Facio and Lopez pushing themselves high alongside Garza and Rodriguez. Tigres here to chance to take, to push this lead even more. Ball comes in alive in the box, lands at the feet there for Tigres, blocked away. Chicago Fire still looking to clear, eventually are able to get it clear. They don't have any options up the field though, and it's going to be pushed right back in by Tigres. Hernandez, the fullback, getting up here, linking up with Rios. Good tackle in the end by Greiber. Still alive here, Vasquez. Cross comes in, alive on the far post for Tigres. The cut on Silver, no foul called, and Rosas picks up the ball in the end. Referee in perfect position for that one.
He had the best angle, so you've got to trust he was right. From here, it looked like Tigres may have had a point, but we are literally the opposite corner of the field.
And the Tigres bench not really up in arms after that one. Tigres looks to continue to play. That one just flicked on and then a high boot called. Dangerous play there. It'll be Chicago Fire ball.
But as I was saying before, we see a lot of teams come in and play with only one true forward. Tigres plays 4-4-2, and there's great movement between the 2 forwards and the 2 outside mids, but it's still more numbers up earlier in the play. And so those early long balls are really catching Chicago, perhaps unused to facing that style.
And for Tigres, not really having to worry about the counterattack with those long balls. If they do turn it over, they have plenty of opportunity to get back in position. Great steal here by Calipari. David Portugal, the player we thought would really run the show for Chicago, just hasn't gotten any touches. Bypassing that midfield consistently by both teams. Foul's going to be called here by Becerra. Another set piece opportunity for Tigres. See if they look to push numbers forward on this one. Looks like they are going to send their 2 center backs up into the box again in Facio and Lopez. Osvaldo Hernandez as well, getting himself in position. Vasquez with the long ball in. Headed away by Chicago. Kept alive by Fabri. Shot comes away. That left-footed strike there. It looked like Jair Diaz off the header from Facio. Flashing well high. Just under 10 minutes left to play here in the first half. And this Tigres team putting on a clinic offensively right now against the Chicago Fire.
Outshooting him 10-3 right now. And as we mentioned, in front of goal and clear chances Tigres has taken advantage of most of them. Obviously, the penalty kick, the lone exception. And Rosas really not to blame for any of the goals. Again, he may have slipped coming out on that one, but even so, it was just one long ball that beat the entire Chicago backline. So you have to imagine he is incredibly frustrated at playing not a bad first half and still giving up 3 goals.
And you got to think Tigres is asking themselves where these goals were over the last 2 days. There's another opportunity coming in here for Rios. Rios crosses low. Rosas makes the save, still alive. It looked like he got to the second ball.
They're going to give him the goal.
Excuse me, it's a goal. It looked like it rolled in. Everyone stopped. No one reacted. And a 4th goal now for this Tigres team. Absolutely on fire here in the first half, leading Chicago Fire. What a coincidence to say. 4-0. Cross comes in here from Rios. Rosas makes the initial save, spills it a little. And then just in front of Silvar, it looks like Juan Rodriguez, or excuse me,
Cifuentes, I think.
Cifuentes is able to steal himself in and get himself a goal. So adds himself to the scorer's sheet.
Well, that was the curse of the commentator there on Ramon Rosas. That was a tough ball coming in terms of the angle, but he's going to believe he should have done better with it.
And this Tigres team against Orlando earlier in the week, similar ball possession, similar opportunities, just could not find that finishing ball. And now they come in here and 4 goals already in the first half. I'm sure they wish they could have spread it out a little bit across these games. Offsides called against Calipari. Chicago Fire team now going to have to look inside, not drop their heads. Continue to try and push and stay competitive here in this game. Tigres down that left wing. Pushing now into the box. Cleared out at the last minute by Manny Cerritos. And Becerra here. Becerra trying to launch a counterattack. Doesn't really have options in front of him. Gets it wide to Calipari. Chicago just hasn't been able to possess the ball over the last 10 minutes. They had those 2 great opportunities from Becerra, and each miss for him immediately went the other way and ended up as a goal for Tigres. Since then, possession hasn't really been there. Padua now. Chance to touch the ball. Beats the initial man, Jair Diaz, and earns the foul.
Well, who started that play? David Portugal in the middle, and he had time on the ball near the halfway line. First of all, when he's gotten the ball earlier in the game, he's been much deeper in his own half, and he hasn't had that kind of time. So Chicago needs to find a way. If he needs to drop deeper, if he needs to take more advanced spots, they need to get him the ball. That allows other players to get into the attack, and he can relay side to side.
Looks like Becerra standing over this one to take. So they wait for their center backs in Greiber and Cerritos to get forward. Greiber, the big number 58, matched up against the captain Facio. Over everyone to the far post. Calipari will lightly chase, but he'll go out for a throw into Tigres. Chicago here trying to put on a little bit of high pressure. Keep Tigres contained in their own half. Perfectly laid off there from Rodriguez to his partner Garza. And you mentioned most teams coming in here playing with a single forward. These 2 forwards doing a good job playing off of each other. Clearly a chemistry there between the 2 of them.
Yeah, there's just all kinds of space. You know, the Chicago players are not understanding who they need to be picking up when.
Easily played back to the goalkeeper. And you do have to say, Elizondo has done his part in this game. 2 big saves on those opportunities for Becerra, as well as his distribution, which has been strong for the most part in this game, allowing that Tigres backline to launch their attacks. Tigres passing around.
Look at that.
Great layoff there.
There's nobody within 15 yards of him.
Shot comes in, goes wide. It'll be a goal kick to the Chicago Fire. The Fire coming in here with a 3-man midfield that we saw. Becerra
So you should
in
have
the
an
attack. Becerra in the attack, but it seems like with the movement of Cifuentes as well as in Leal and Rios, there's just been a mistake maybe in the midfield with where the numbers should be. One here by Tigres. Christian Marquez goes up for it, is able to get in possession. Holds off the center back, looking for some help. Plays it back now to Portugal. Chicago Fire trying to push in the attack for the first time. One away though by throw in now coming.
We should point out, Chicago has 4 players in the lineup who are 2000 birthdays, which means they mostly play with the U14s. This is not their primary group. So I think this being the 3rd group game, we may be seeing the least cohesive Chicago team, and Tigres has really exposed that today.
Tigres laying it back. Vasquez, the quick switch of the field. And we've seen in games throughout this tournament, for example, San Jose Palmeiras, a clear size as well as age advantage for Palmeiras. But San Jose played to their strengths, stayed compact as a team, were able to keep themselves in the game until they could get a goal-scoring opportunity. The Chicago Fire team, as this first half ends, has been stretched and, like you said, losing numbers, but you have to be impressed by the efficiency and the lethal attack of Tigres.
Full credit to Tigres for the finishing, no doubt. Excellent in front of goal, penalty aside, and creating chances at a quick rate. Okay, but the organization for Chicago at the back, trust me, they're about to hear it in that huddle, because that was not what these teams come here to work on. You need to be at a higher level even when you get here. So they're really going to have to adjust that at halftime and play for pride in the second half, because if you get run off the park 6 or 7-0, that's an embarrassment.
We'll be back here on MLSsoccer.com with all the second half action of this 2015 Generation Adidas Cup matchup. Tigres leading Chicago 4-0.
Who cares whose fault it is? We have to keep working harder.
David Goss back here in Frisco, Texas at the 2015 Generation Adidas Cup. Our second of 3 broadcasts here on this third day of action as the group stage closes up. And a clinical display from Tigres out of Mexico here against the Chicago Fire in the first half for a 4-0 lead in this Chicago Fire team. Definitely getting a talking to. We listened in a little bit at halftime from their coaches, trying to find that desire, that passion, that fire, of course, that's the word I use, for the Chicago team to try and get them inspired to push in this second half. You know, the coach said there's no three-point shot. You're not going to get it 4 goals back on a set piece, but let's play smart. Let's work hard. Let's get 1. Let's get 2, and then we can play from there. Here in this second half, the Chicago Fire, a lot of soul-searching maybe to do, but an opportunity to leave with a much sweeter taste in their mouth. A few substitutions for them at halftime. So I am, of course, David Goss. Joining with me is Jonathan Yardley. We'll have all your action. Another game here today, 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and then we'll have 4 games back-to-back tomorrow. The semifinals of both the Premier Division and the Championship Division. And the 2 championships taking place on Saturday, 11 a.m. Central Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and the other, the Championship Division final in Toyota Stadium in front of the crowd, 7:15 p.m. Central Time on Saturday evening. We still have plenty of games to go until then, and we've said it all tournament, but we got to say it again. It's been the international teams. They have come in here. They have shown their quality. They have played with some determination. Sagantos in our first game going undefeated in the group stage, and now Tigres here putting on a show against the Chicago Fire.
Yeah, but you have to say the New York Red Bulls and the LA Galaxy, 2 of the stronger academies historically, didn't qualify for the Champions Division this year, which raised some eyebrows, I think. They did do it geographically, so that hurt them. But they, in the Premier Division, have done very well. They're 2 of the 4 semifinalists, and they'll play head-to-head tomorrow. And then, of course, FC Dallas is kind of MLS's main hope in the Champions Division. Toronto FC is going to need help from Sporting Kansas City to create a stir in that group and deny River Plate a spot in the semis.
And the substitute on the far side, Takawira, with that touch there, his first touch of the second half. Another substitution for Chicago, number 23, Marco Fabian, is checked in at right back, sliding Michael Silvar in to the center back role.
Yeah, Jacob Graber got a little bit banged up there, so that's an injury substitution after the first half.
And this Chicago Fire team, killed by that long ball throughout the first half and struggling to stay compact as a team, to hold together a back line as a team and pick up midfield runners as a team. And how can they work to improve that here in the second half?
Just communication, and it's, again, a group of guys who largely haven't played together in these spots on the back line. And that was what we heard in the, not the locker room, but in the little dugout area that they have in the halftime talk, was how can you help your teammate and how can you be accountable as a group? Don't just say it's his fault. You've got to help him.
The Chicago Fire team putting on a little bit of higher pressure, trying to make Tigres uncomfortable, turn over some possession where they can. Silvar gets out, blocks that one away. Throw-in coming here for the fullback, Diaz. Jair Diaz had the assist on the second goal for Tigres. Silvar once again battling in that center back role. We started this game at right back, now slid in there. A lot of action so far, as they would expect for this whole game. Christian Marquez to help force that turnover. Mihailovic. Pressure here for Rosas. Collision after he gets rid of it. And won by Tigres. Becerra, number 57 in the midfield for Chicago, very effective attacking-wise in the first half, so they'll look to keep him high, and it already looks like Mihailovic is playing a little bit higher than he was in the first half, now on that, maybe in that second forward role for this Chicago Fire team. So free kicks called here, dangerous play. Silvar to take. And we must say, Eintracht Frankfurt and Palmeiras both put up heavy score lines earlier in this tournament against the San Jose Earthquakes and the Philadelphia Union, but not the type of performance that we saw in a single half as we did against that we just saw from Tigres.
No, and the goals we saw in those games were even more impressive than here. This was good finishing and poor organization defensively, and so Chicago's going to try and rebound with a strong second half, just like we saw MLS teams rebound with strong second games after making those adjustments.
In here alone, coming off that far side, off that cross for Tigres, wide open, and it looked like Rios, Israel Rios. And like you said, organization, communication, wide open there. Eduardo Ruiz losing his man. And Rios almost walking in for a fifth goal for this team. And it's tough to fix those things in a game where you feel like you're down by so much and maybe concentration is lost, but you have to be professional in a moment like this.
You could see the left back, who is new to this group, and the substitute who had just come in at halftime at left wing, talking about how that man got so wide open. As we're going to get a couple of Tigres subs here.
Two substitutes coming on. And the two substitutes going off on the far side. Looks like David Vasquez, the center midfield, is one of them. We'll get you the other one as soon as we know, but it does look to be Luis Garza.
Fabian Calvillo, one of those who came in.
One there by Rodriguez. Man who opened the scoring for us early in the first half. 4 minutes in was the opening goal for this Tigres team. We knew Chicago was going to have a mountain to climb. Rosas made a penalty kick save on Facio right after that to keep it at 1-0. And then Tigres opened up the scoring. Chicago Fire. Becerra had 2 point-blank opportunities saved, and on both of them, Tigres went right back the other way and scored.
Yeah, and it was a portion of the game late in the first half, or mid to late, where everything opened up both sides, and it was just Tigres so much better in front of goal than Chicago. But even without that stretch, Tigres has dominated in this one.
So the substitutes in this game, Jonathan already said, Calvillo came in, as well as Fernando Pinelas. They came in here for number 141, David Vasquez, as well as Luis Garza, who scored the second goal of this game. Rodriguez here gets it to one of those two substitutes. And the cross coming in there, a lot of pace and power there from Diaz, but it's flashed wide. So this Tigres team not taking the foot off the gas, bringing two offensive substitutions in to this game. And David Vasquez, number 140, didn't have the assists here today, but you could see this whole team, size and physicality. He maybe the brains in that midfield, controlling the tempo in the game throughout this tournament for Tigres so far, Jonathan.
Yeah, and you talk about you're playing with a 4-0 lead. These teams are playing again tomorrow, and those are going to be crucial. We expect Tigres to match up with Recife. And Sport Recife, who we saw against the New York Red Bulls, and that would be a much more even matchup, you would think. So some of that has to be resting players for tomorrow, make sure they're ready to go in that 5th place playoff.
And it'll be an interesting matchup. Recife, a team that likes to keep the ball down on the ground, possess. Tigres, clearly a team that likes to play a bit more direct.
So we told you the 4 semifinalists, and it looks very much like the 5th to 8th place playoff will have Recife and Tigres in one semifinal, and Chivas USA against either New England or Portland in the other. Portland playing Colorado right now and could finish second in their group with a win.
The substitute here, Calvillo, called offsides on that long ball, and Chicago able to get their back line all communicating, all working as one organization. We're able to get Calvillo there called offsides. So set piece now for Silvar. Rosas here to take. Just under 10 minutes into the second half here. The second of 3 games. We'll be streaming on MLSsoccer.com here today. That one's clipped down the line for Calipari. Just beaten to it by Facio. Facio, the captain, has done a little bit of everything here today. Had a penalty kick saved. He's held down that back line position. He's the marshal of those in that center of the back. Throw-in coming now. Chicago Fire. Bizarra losing possession. It's cleared up the line. Just over the head of Silvar. Back to the safe feet of Rosas. Long ball there from Cerritos. Calipari does a good job getting into that tackle. Chance to clear now for the Fire. One immediately by Tigres. Rodriguez trying to launch the attack. Good quick passing movement from Tigres when they're able to pick up the ball in midfield now. Trying to push for that 5th opportunity. Rosas out quickly to steal that one away in front of the oncoming attacker. Trying to launch the attack the other way now. Mihailovic able to spray himself wide out here. And it goes out of bounds off of him. Didn't have much support. Takawira laid it off for him, made a run to the middle. Chicago, it looks like, is going to make their 3rd substitution here of the game. Excuse me, 3rd and 4th. As 2 players come out, Eduardo Riaz, as well as Braden Calipari coming out. Coming on for Chicago. Atlia, Todor Atlia, as well as Anthony Markanich, whose brother, Nick, also plays for this team but is not here at this tournament. 2 players that are highly touted throughout the U.S. system. Both had a few U.S. youth national team call-ups, as well as an opportunity to play for the ID2 camps. Travel overseas, play against foreign opposition there. Different every year. So more substitutions coming for Chicago. See if they're able to turn the tide at all, get that first goal-scoring opportunity. Tigres here wins the ball back. Roll out of bounds for a throw into the fire. So it looks like Marikanic is going to slot in for Ruiz at left back. At left back. And Leah here pushing in for Kalapari at right midfield as he gets the ball stretched out wide, hugging that touch line. Playing it back to the other substitute in, Fabiana.
That's a good switch there. A skip pass along the back line, not the simple one, moving the ball a little bit faster side to side for Chicago.
Chicago just hasn't had many opportunities to do this so far. Jonathan chasing the game a lot in the first half. A lot of their possession was in clearances. Trying to get clear of pressure from Tigres. A chance to cross now to the far post, just over the head there of Mihailovic. Tigres going back the other way, but an immediate impact for the substitute there in Atlia. Chance now for Tigres, a long strike off the crossbar. What a hit there for Tigres. It looked like out of the midfield, Rios on that far side with the right-footed strike. It dipped over the head of Rosas, but hit the crossbar. Went out of bounds. This Tigres team continuing to look dangerous. Looks like it's a substitution now for the other starting forward on this team, Juan Rodriguez. He scored the first goal to open it up in the 4th minute for this Tigres team. He'll be replaced like for like here by, it looks like, Delgadillo, number 339. And while these numbers may look weird to you out there, 339, not a normal number that you hear, Jonathan, there is a good reason for that.
It tells you roughly just how many players Tigres have in their youth system, because for the most part, players get assigned numbers based on their age groups. And so there's older age groups that wear most of the numbers between 100 and 400.
So these players know exactly how many spots they have to go to get into that starting 11. Well, 339 may sound like a lot. It's a lot closer than we've ever been. Throw in here for Tigres. Tigres, I mentioned early in the broadcast, currently second right now in the U17 division in Mexico. Their first team currently in 7th in the Liga MX standings.
Meanwhile, you get a Chicago team that's in 6th place in a Central Division, in the Mid-America Division is the actual name of it, in the Central Conference, and is not at full strength and has brought a younger group. So that, I think, accounts for a lot of the organizational issues in the first half. We're seeing this second half effort, a few players in different spots, a few players more used to playing together. It's more organized. I'm not saying they're a match for Tigres even at full strength right now, but some big improvements already we've seen in the second half.
An opportunity maybe to get some players some extra minutes here in this last game. Pushed off formations a little bit and positioning a little bit.
And it's interesting that we hadn't really thought about it, but the qualifying format for the Champions Division in MLS broke up teams by region. All evidence is that LA and New York have a pretty good shot of beating Kansas City, right? And so you wonder if the Central Conference is maybe being a little overrepresented. On the other hand, you have to qualify somehow, and you want those trips to be feasible. And teams certainly get stretched out no matter who they're playing in this tournament, because the Red Bulls and Galaxy, while they won their groups, did not have an easy time of it.
Orlando showed themselves well here at this tournament, falling to LA just in that third and final.
And LA
game.
have themselves to blame. They finished 4th in that qualifying group, not 3rd. They finished behind Chivas USA.
Chivas USA was on this field in the first game. One of the last opportunities you'll have to see that crest fly in its colors in a youth academy that they are extremely proud of. A lot of young players coming through there that have been a part of both the U.S. and Mexican U17, U15, U14 programs. This one's deflected high, and it's going to go out for a corner kick to Tigres.
It's going to be really interesting to see where all those kids end up. Do they wind up in another MLS academy, obviously the Galaxy, or whenever LAFC, or whatever that name turns out to be, create one? Or do they go with one of the non-MLS affiliated clubs and just kind of make their way up through the ranks, national team, college soccer, pro tryouts, whatever?
And a lot of their players have followed their head coach in Kleiben to that program. So the question is, where will he end up? Plays a very distinct and impressive style that have fit them well. Right now, it's the style for Tigres in this game. Direct and lethal, I think, would be the two descriptions for it. And so far, it's worked well. 4 goals in the first half. The opening goal in the 4th minute. A penalty kick then saved the shot from the captain, Facio, on Chicago Fire, but Rosas was able to dive out to his left and make that save. Tigres responded with 3 more goals to close out the first half. Here in the second half, it's been fairly even back and forth, I guess you could say, between these two teams. Heavy substitutions across the board. Chicago still looking for their opening goal. And a free kick called in favor of the Chicago Fire. It's going to be a set piece for them. A call there from Baltazar Paraljana, our head official, who's had a lot of work to do, called a penalty kick and then was right on top of another potential foul in the box, which he said was not a foul. Now here a set piece called in favor.
And you can see number 54 from Chicago is a name familiar to MLS fans. That's Vitalis Takawira. His father, nicknamed Digital, scored the first 2 goals in Sporting Kansas City history back when they were the Wiz in 1996 and had the distinctive digital crawl celebration. So, second generation MLSer there.
And for all of you out there, because we always know the first question when you hear about these players, his dad is Zimbabwean international. Vitalis, though, has United States citizenship, so that potential is still there. It's another substitution coming for this Tigres team, and number 333, Celaya, checking in for number 356, Pedro Cifuentes. Cifuentes had the 4th goal of this game. Free kick comes in. Still alive for the Chicago Fire on that far post. It's headed out for a corner kick in favor of the Fire. So another opportunity here. That service from Bizarra. Victor Bizarra has been impressive in this game. Very rare have been the Chicago Fire attacks. Everything good that's happened, though, has come through him.
Yeah, now he needs to find a way to be more involved. Like you said, dangerous in the attack, but for both him and the Fire, they need to find ways to get him in pockets of space where he can get his head up and find those attacking through balls.
Substitution taking place before we take this set piece for Tigres. It looks to be number 352, Jair Pizano, coming on. We'll let you know who he comes on in place of when we know. And for the Chicago Fire, substitution as well, David Portugal coming out in place of Adrian Ortega. Corner comes in. Knocked away by the goalkeeper, Elizondo, and out again for another corner kick. Played in quickly here at the near post and taken easily by Elizondo. So heavy changes coming in now for this Tigres team. No substitutions at halftime, 4 so far in the second half.
So I think both teams are now out of substitutions, if I'm counting correctly.
Which is always a question that we have to ask. Israel Rios, the only player still on the field that has scored. Tigres team's taking out their other 3 goal scorers. Good job stealing that away there from the feet of Attila. Attila, American-born Serbian background, goes over every summer and trains with Red Star Belgrade, one of the legendary clubs in the United States. His brother, his older brother as well, trains with him, currently going to the University of Wisconsin as a player.
He has a commute to get to fire training. He's from Franklin, Wisconsin, so it's a bit of a drive.
An opportunity for him to play against the best players in the region, and we see that across the board. The commitment from these players as well as their families to be a part of these systems, to make themselves the best players possible, as that cross flashed wide by the substitute, Calvillo. But that commitment, we saw in the first game, player in Kelly Cornfield Saunders, who had to add a 2-hour drive to his training.
Each way, right?
Each way, but he wanted to train under the Chivas USA moniker. He wanted to train for Coach Brian Kleiben, and he was able to go and do that and try and become the best player that he can be. And it's tough for a lot of these players to make that decision, Jonathan, of when to make that next step, of when to push into the professional ranks in a country in the U.S. where we don't have a lot of sports that have a similar opportunity like that. Foul called there against Fabiano. That foul on the substitute, Celaya. Celaya did start in their second match against Orlando City, coming off the bench here today. And I don't think there's any chance that you could have any sort of complaints of the lineup for this head coach, Elizondo, as he had a flawless first half for his team. Tigres here working the ball around the back. Chicago able to pick up possession. Bizarra has Takawira out to his left. Tries to play it directly down the middle and losing possession. Tigres picks this ball up. 4-0 here for Tigres. 0-0 here in the second half. What have you seen from Chicago that's been a shift here in this second half?
They've been a lot more composed. I think they knew what to expect, of course, after having halftime to talk about it. And so the next step in the evolution is to be able to gain that composure within a half. Don't need to break for halftime to kind of settle down and get your organization. But the defense has been able to stick together. They've held a slightly higher line as a back line, and that's resulted in way more offside calls in this half than in the first, when Tigres ran rampant onto those long balls.
Well, we haven't seen Chicago really go 4 forwards and try and push it forward, dangerously, unnecessarily, to try and get a goal. We've played a composed second half, as Fabiano was able to guide that one out.
Yeah, I think in this situation, you play to win the second half. And at 0-0 right now, they're fine. They haven't created a ton of chances, but certainly an improved performance in the second half from Chicago. And just like Steve Wondolowski told us after San Jose's game on Monday, the ability to learn and adjust in-game to your opponent is going to bode well for these guys later on.
And they need that pass-off of knowledge, you could say, of the coach knows the changes he needs to make, and he can do it at halftime. But like you said, that ability to do it yourself in the game is very tough. It's part of the learning experience in this tournament. And we've talked to the directors of these tournaments consistently, and they've said that's what they wanted to do. They want to bring in some of the best academy teams in the world, show these MLS players the top levels around the world, how other teams go about their business, and how to get better, how to change, and how to react maybe a little bit. And we complimented both Philly and San Jose consistently in the second day, able to adjust from the first day. International competition coming from around the world. Tigres and Pumas, 2 teams out of Mexico, part of this tournament, as well as 2 teams out of Brazil.
I'd say the Mexican teams had the closest commute, and some of the largest fan turnouts for the international squads. But we're going to get a look at one of the ones that came the farthest later tonight. 7 o'clock Eastern here on MLSsoccer.com. We'll have Aspire Academy from Qatar. About half the team is made up of players from the Qatari age group national team that'll be in their mid-20s for that 2022 World Cup. They'll be taking on Toronto FC, which brought a strong team here and still has a chance to advance to the semifinals.
Aspire Academy, one of 2 Asian Confederation teams in this tournament, as well as the Japanese club Sagan Toast. We've had Frankfurt and Athletic Bilbao coming in from Europe, as well as those 2 Brazilian clubs. So it's been a good mix of different styles, really, we've seen. The Brazilian teams played one style. Frankfurt has brought their own element to this tournament, as well as now we're seeing Tigres here with this devastating direct style. Becerra here with the shot. Good pace on it, but it flashes high of the crossbar. And once again, it's Becerra. When something offensively positive happens for Chicago, it's coming with him involved. Fabiano, bad header taken away. And you mentioned the production out of the academy to the professional ranks that Chicago Fire have had. And that's a new wrinkle now over the last 4 to 5 years, is for youth players to really see that direct pipeline to the first team. Harrison Shipp, the big performance once again this week. And for these players, that's got to be new, as that shot goes high. A new opportunity, Jonathan, to look into the first team, look into these USL teams, and say we're very close to being at that professional level.
Yeah, and of course, this all started with Major League Soccer instituting the Homegrown Player Initiative in 2007, mandating that teams start academy programs. And so, in terms of the youth development system, still very young around the league. The newer clubs, many of them did not start their academies till 2011, 2012. So a lot of growth in this tournament, part of that. And as David said, USL is now kind of expected to become the stepping stone from the academy to the first team. Players can play in USL games and not violate their amateur eligibility. And that's an opportunity we're going to see teams taking advantage of, some this year, and I would anticipate even more in the future.
And we've seen players for LA, New York, amongst other clubs, who played in this tournament last year as a free kicks called here. Set piece opportunity now for Tigres. Foul going against Adrian Ortega. But we've seen players who played in this tournament last year on these broadcasts who are playing in USL just this weekend.
USL, we've seen players from this tournament last year in the EPL this year and in Major League Soccer. But yeah, lighting up the USL, Victor Mansaray in Seattle already had maybe the assist of the year in the USL, and then played in MLS here over the weekend for Seattle. Sebastian Saucedo, Fito Ovalle, Justin Glad, all from that Real Salt Lake team last year. And then Ollie Shenton from Stoke City has actually already made his EPL debut after helping Stoke win this tournament last year.
Set piece opportunity here for this Tigres team. It looks like Israel Rios, the man who scored the 3rd goal in this game, standing over it. His right-footed service. The wind really starting to blow hard, and we've seen it affect set pieces. Trying to float it in front of the goalkeeper, and this wind blowing it straight into the arms. Shortly taken. An opportunity here, well blocked in the end by the Chicago Fire. It'll go out for a corner kick. Becerra there with the block. Victor Becerra, immense so far in this game. Cross comes into the far post. Bodies were open for Tigres, but it goes out. It'll be another goal kick.
I would have saved my tricky set piece for tomorrow.
This Tigres team maybe working on a few things, a few players who haven't maybe got as many minutes so far in this tournament, a chance to play here today. Rosas hits this one long. Flicked on there. And a free kick called. It'll be a set piece opportunity now for the Fire. Taken quickly by Fabiano. A Last few minutes left to play here. Altia sprays it wide. Talk a little bit about the change in this second half. Cerritos' name was one that we said a lot in the first half. A lot of emergency defending for him. A much calmer second half so far for the center back, as well as Michael Silvar, who's moved in from that right back position this second half. Cerritos with the win there. Chicago works it back to the goalkeeper. Long ball from the goalkeeper. Rosas turned over to Tigres. Tigres a 4-0 winner in the first half, but a 0-0 tie so far in the second half. Chicago Fire a much better performance so far out of halftime.
And they're going to be kicking themselves, wondering why didn't we play that way in the first half. And they have 2 games remaining in this tournament. In the placement games, as you see the offside flag go up. And that's going to be, I'm sure, the challenge from the coaching staff. Come out and play 70 minutes that way, not 35. Consistency is still hard to find in teenagers, of course. You know, that's no surprise. But it's what all these academy teams, from the best one to the worst one, are trying to improve.
And it's amazing how you could say, we know what we're in for, we've watched this team play, but until you step on the field and face this opposition, playing in a different style, playing, you know, some players that are a little bit older than you, it's tough to really gauge what you're in for. And then Chicago Fire now have had this opportunity after halftime to adjust, playing much better, like you said, here in the second half. Tigres works the ball around their back line. Commanding performance for their 2 center backs, Infacio and Lopez, launching the attacks in the first half, as well as defending stoutly. Christian Marquez up top's battled all game long, hasn't really gotten as much support as he's probably used to. Goes out for a goal kick, a throw-in. The referee correcting here, Silvar.
Yeah, they got that one wrong.
Fabiano will take. Cerritos losing out on that tackle. Cut back now, Tigres in the box, the left-footed strike off the post, and then off the hand. Gorgeous footwork there. And a shot, it looked like, from Cruz Leal, one of the starters here for Tigres. One of the starters who hasn't got his name on the goal-scoring charts. Was a well-hit left-footed shot that curled up into that top corner. Just too much space for him there in the box, Jonathan.
I think they were still a little frustrated from the call, to be honest. Which shouldn't be an excuse, but...
It's okay, Jonathan. We'll give you that excuse.
Not me.
Silvar whiffs on that clearance there. Floats out. It's going to go out for a corner kick to Tigres. We've hit that 70-minute mark, of course. 35-minute halves here in this game. So just stoppage time left to play here. Corner kick will be taken by Jair Diaz, the left back. That already has an assist in this game. Cleared by Silvar. Silvar has been immense at center back here in this second half, helping solidify the Chicago Fire team. Cross comes in from Tigres. Battle there at that near post. Referee's going to call a foul. So set piece now for free kick here for this Chicago Fire team. They've seen out this second half much more in control than in the first half. Tigres scoring very quickly and a lot in that first half. 4 goals and a penalty kick opportunity that they had saved by Rosas. So he makes another save there in that first half. Started to pour it on towards the end. Chicago Fire coming out in the second half have had 2 or 3 good goal scoring looks, but haven't been able to get themselves on the board. They haven't been able to keep it clean here in this second half. They will fall to last place in their group. Tigres will move up to second place in the group, passing Orlando. LA Galaxy, winners of the group. They won in the time slot previous to this game. A 2-1 victory over Orlando City. The winner right at the end. Orlando, of course, had to push for the victory. They had to win in regulation, and so LA an opportunity. Let's get that tap-in winner. There's a set piece here. Bizarro will take.
May have cost Orlando second place in the group. If they'd gone to a shootout and won it, they would have finished second.
But as Herman Edwards always tells us, you play to win the games. Bizarro here to take. Service comes in low, knocked away by Tigres, and that'll be the final whistle from our head referee. So a commanding performance for Tigres to push themselves into second place in the group. A 4-0 victory, 4 goals in the first half. Jonathan, a much better second half, though, from Chicago. Chicago Fire, a lot of things that they can take away, lessons here from this game.
Yeah, I think they learned a lot in the way they performed in the second half. Playing against a team as good as Tigres, the way they dominated the first, hey, we can be with them and play even in the second half. Again, as we talked about, that confidence in implementing it, in being consistent, and being able to play 70 minutes with that level of confidence is what they want to work on in their final 2 games.
For Tigres, they came in, they hadn't scored yet in open play in this game. They won a PK shootout to get themselves an extra point against Orlando. 4 goals in the opening half, the first in the 4th minute. And this Tigres team now will try and push forward the rest of the tournament in this direct attacking style.
Yeah, and it was almost like a video game glitch. They scored doing the same thing 4 times. And you want to see them vary it up a little bit because they're going to play a CFA tomorrow in the 5th place semifinals. I think they're going to be ready for this type of attack. It's going to be a very different look. And so for Tigres, great performance, great finishing in front of goal. Now how can they create chances through the run of play, not just kick and run?
So we've still got one more game for you here today on MLSsoccer.com, the 2015 Generation Adidas Cup. The 3rd day of play, the group stage coming to a close. Aspire Academy from Qatar facing off against Toronto FC here, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. local time. I'm David Gotts with Jonathan Yarley. We'll see you then.
ball, but don't whip your camera. But it's like I don't have any counterbalance. And like so what I've been using as resistance is literally like the locks. Like it's so stripped away that like this at lock